Okay, for the third part of this demo, let's dive a bit deeper on the solution structure and see how ADM drives the development from the design level. I will open up the ball on Azure or ADM solution that contains all the ADM structures. The reason I did usually have them on separate solutions is that it's lighter to use separate Visual Studios for different purposes. It doesn't lock up in that much, and I can focus on certain areas easier. I'm using solution items as pointing inputs from the abstraction locations. The ADM is more covered on our other demos, especially from the last year's Tech Days event. But just a brief summary that I gather all the abstractions within one solution within one folder, where all the abstractions are separate modules except for the abstraction content that's actually local folder for having the content to drive the abstractions. And in here we have relevant inputs coming from the ball core input content, few fixed ones or existing ones, and then the ball demo, which I've also shortcutted here in the input area. Then I'm interested in document outputs, which seems to be empty, but enabling here show all files, I start to get the results from the actual abstraction runners. So it's not, we don't try to track them in the solution because it's kind of once a deal, and you usually know what you're tracking to. I'll add the outputs here as a shortcuts as well. So I choose outputs, add existing item, and then abstractions, abstraction content, documentation, out, gets me the files I want. Note that in solution items it's not add as a link that we use on when we build and don't want to copy the current version to different directory. Solution items are always shortcuts at the solution level, so I just add them to see them here. And showing a bit what we have now, focusing on the ball demo, we have operations defined already. I'll change my word to show the navigation pane to show it better. So we have actually create hello world, getting the parameter that's right now as blue for it not implemented as its status, and delete hello world, which having again all the documentation level covered here. Then we have different documentation tracks the status of the thing. It's basically the same thing, but it summarizes the actual summary of everything in the first summary tab, and then every item in a way having their status. So we kind of have both the operations in a state of being implemented, although we see them running on the demo. That's for the documentation side. Now let's go see what kind of input structure is driving that kind of result. So I open the ball demo XML and start to actually revisit these models. Here we have the information model, very simplistic. I'll soon make a change for it, but first let's change the states intelligence supported to implemented all around the documentation. So we have let's make it design approved to implemented, replace all in current document. Then we save the file and run the abstraction generators again. Notice that if you have the word open while you try to run the builder, it will give an error for not being able to generate the documentation. So let's see if it had any effect on our status tracking. Yeah, the status tracking is now completely empty. We are kind of done. if we open the actual documentation of the operations, the text is here still, but it's all in black font, so that there is nothing to pay attention to in a status wise or alerting wise sense. So this is how you can track and get the documentation out of the system swiftly. Now let's make a modification to the system. I'll introduce new item to the hello world object. Let's make it a additional hello text, or optional text, again of type text short, to the main object. Then let's introduce additional parameter to the create hello world as an optional text, and design text is optional text defaults to hello text if not given. This parameter we keep as implemented already, but then we make set hello world text additional method execute for set optional text. Set optional text to object. State will be design approved. We approve it on the fly, and then we actually grab another parameter here as well. We introduce in this method. We need them both, because if this is not given, we want to use the hello text. If optional text is not given, set optional text to hello text as well. So now we kind of introduced design-wise new feature. Let's run the generators again. I'll use the F5 to just start the debugging. And let's revisit the operation documents for this part. Now we see there is a separate method that's been in a blue notation that's been introduced to set optional text here. And if we go to the status tracking, we actually see that create hello world operation is only 83% done now, because one is still being implemented, and it's our set optional text. Okay, we've driven now the actual change in the model. Let's go to the another Visual Studio to apply the change. So here we are in the main Visual Studio. Trying to rebuild the solution now will introduce some interesting aspects because of the code generation. It says that it cannot execute the method set optional text, which is pretty obvious because it's not implemented yet. So in a code generation, orchestration code generation is missing the call. We use the resharpers option to create method stub for the set optional text, and it's getting already the parameters as named properly. So following the guidance that we know what we actually wrote, if optional text is null or empty, we default to create that object optional text will be as hello text, else created object optional text will be as optional text. So here is now our new implementation for the method. Let's try to build the solution again. We get further on, except for the part. Let's actually rebuild this. We should have gotten the failure for not meeting the requirement for the parameters. Oh yeah, it's an optional parameter, so the parameters in this operation we don't enforce the parameter to be true. However, let's go to the usages of the parameters so that we see. Let's go to the usage of the execute so that we see who is calling the method. And I'm using now resharper shortcuts. So in the Visual Studio it's a go to definition. Here we see that the call for the create hello world is coming actually from the web stack layer, the web action implementation. So here I introduce optional mesh again at this level, and then set it also here. It's optional text. Let's refactor that. Optional text, and now we should get errors as we do. So let's add here also in the call optional text will be form, our web form with the t optional text content, which can be null if there is no such key available in the form. Now building the solution. We'll finalize the current build of the object modification. Now what we need to do here in addition is that we need to actually update the workers. Which means that we publish to the worker storage a new workers that can that know the new fields for the objects to be populated. Then we run again the Azure configurator so that we get the workers up and running. Starting with that solution. Starting to debug the developer emulator. We'll get the thing running for the worker side. Let's go back to the Visual Studio where we have the UI running. Let's start debugging here first. Going to the account, and creating the new hello texts here. I'll move to another demo to refine the UI design on this part. So there will be follow up with another video for continuing this one.